Okay, today we're talking about factoring by grouping. Okay? When you are grouping, you know how like with difference of squares, how we talked about difference of squares, how many terms are there? Two. When you're dealing with grouping, there are going to be
More than 2.
4 terms. Okay? When there's 3 terms, that's when you use your diamond method. Okay? 4 terms is grouping. Okay? But you always check for what first, no matter what the problem is. Your GCF. Good. So it's not stated in these, but you always want to, we're going to put number 0. Check for GCF in the entire problem. Okay, once you check for GCF in the entire problem, if there isn't a GCF, then you go to step 1 here, which is that you group the first 2 terms. So notice here in my original problem, the first 2 terms are x cubed and x squared. You take your GCF out of your first 2 terms. In this case, the GCF is x squared. When I divide these by x squared, x cubed divided by x squared makes x, and x squared divided by x squared makes a 1. Okay? Then you go to the last 2 terms. Within your last 2 terms, you now take out a GCF. In this case, the GCF is 2. When I divide each of these by 2, I'm left with x plus 1. Now, what should happen is that both of the parentheses here should be the same. If they are not the same, you did something wrong, and you need to go back and check to see what you did, because they need to be the same. Once these are the same, your GCF of each one in parentheses, okay? So now what you have is that you have this problem. X squared with x plus 1 plus 2 and x plus 1. So now your GCF is x plus 1. Okay? So you are taking out x plus 1, which means you're dividing each of these by x plus 1, which means they cancel out, and you're left with the 2 things that are in front, which is x squared plus 2. And this is your answer. Does it matter which way you write your answer? No. Okay? As long as you have the parentheses, it doesn't matter. Okay, are there questions about any of those steps or what I just said? Yes.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I just had it funny.
Yes. Okay, so going back here, notice how each of these parentheses are the same. Okay, what I did right here is in red, I just rewrote this information. Okay, so that's what I have there. If you notice, each of these are x plus 1, right? So now your GCF, it's like you're doing GCF like 3 and 4 times in this problem. My GCF now is x plus 1. Okay, so I'm taking out the x plus 1, which is my GCF, and when I divide each of these terms by x plus 1, see how these cancel out? And you're left with just your x squared plus 2. Does anybody else have questions on this? Okay, you're welcome. Let's move on. Okay, on this first example, they've asked you to factor, and if you notice, they've already done the first step for you. Okay, so hopefully you see what is your GCF in this problem. Exactly, it's y plus 2. So I'm taking out y plus 2, which means I'm dividing each of these terms by y plus 2. When I do that, these cancel, and what am I left with?
X plus 3.
And that is my answer. And you always check if you can factor further, but in this case, I can't factor further. Yes?
How can you put y plus 2 but you cancel out the 1?
Just like if I had this problem. 3x plus 6. And we take out the GCF. What is the GCF there? 3. I take the 3 and I make my parenthesis, right? Here, my GCF is y plus 2. I write my y plus 2 and I make my parenthesis. Then I'm dividing each of these by 3. These cancel and I get x plus 2. You're doing the same thing. The y plus 2, though, is the number I'm writing in front. Just like here, my GCF was 3 that I wrote in front. And then whatever's left over is what goes in the second set of parentheses. Does that make more sense? A little bit?
I was just confused because if you're canceling out y plus 3.
Well, I'm taking it out. I'm not canceling it. I'm factoring out. Okay? If we were to go backwards, if we were to multiply it out, if I don't have this y plus 2, x plus 3 is not the same thing as what's written there. In order to check your answers, you always need to be able to take this and multiply it back through and get back to your original problem. So if you took this and multiplied it through, you would have x times y plus 2, which is right there. And then you would have 3 times y plus 2. Okay? If you don't have that y plus 2, x plus 3 is not the same thing as what's written there. Okay? So whenever you're taking out a GCF, you have to write the GCF. And then you write whatever reduces whatever's left there. What did you say, Marcus? I didn't go over what in the first steps? What? Yeah. The GCF here is x squared, so we're writing the x squared and we're dividing these and it's left with x plus 1. Okay, same thing here. The GCF is 2. We're taking the 2 out, we're dividing by 2, we're left with x plus 1. Whenever you take out a GCF, it is always written in front. Okay?
So we get that.
Cool. That's the goal. That's why we're here for notes. Check for understanding. Okay, so example 2. Again, they've done some of the work for you. But you need to make sure that all of them have the GCF in them. Okay? So Chris and Andrew. Okay. This has y or u plus y. This has u plus y. Does this have u plus y? Yes. Could you rewrite this as u plus y so it looks exactly the same?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, whenever you have plus signs and everything's positive, it doesn't matter which way you write it. When you have minus signs, that's when you have to be careful because negatives stick with the number that they're with. Okay?
I get it now.
So, what is my GCF for this problem?
U plus 1.
U plus y. Good. So, I'm going to take out a u plus y because that's my GCF. We write that in front. And I'm dividing each of these terms by u plus y. Okay? So I make my second parenthesis. Here the u plus y's cancel out, and what is left?
2s minus
Okay,
y.
2s. Hold on, you're going too fast. 2s. Okay, I go to my next term. The u plus y's cancel out, and I'm left with what?
Negative y.
Minus y. Good. On this one, the u plus y's cancel out. If there isn't anything in front, what is actually there?
Negative 1.
Good. Don't forget that. If you don't put minus 1, you have done it incorrectly. Because remember, we have to be able to take this and multiply it back through to come back to this. If you don't have a term there, you would never end up with that last term. So if it cancels out, there is still a 1 there. Okay? And it's minus 1 because there was a negative. Yes, Rom?
That's a 2x, right?
Yeah, this is an S. Thank you. Are there any other questions on example 2? Okay. Example 3. Is there a GCF for the entire problem? No. So, since that's not there, we go and we split them up into the 2 groups. So, we have our first group here, and then you have your second group. Don't forget that the signs go with those numbers. In my first group, what is the GCF?
3x.
2x squared is correct. It's okay, so I'm writing 2x squared and I make my parenthesis. So then we go through and we're dividing each of these terms by 2x squared. On the first one, the 2's cancel out, x squared, and I'm left with what?
X.
X. Plus, On the next term, the 2 goes into 6 3 times. X squareds cancel, so I'm just left with 3. Okay, so now we go to this set. Is there a GCF?
No.
No. Okay, but in order to make this work, could I take out a positive 1?
Yes.
So you want 2 parentheses. If there's nothing to take out, that means there's really a 1. And if I were to multiply this back through, 1 times x makes x, 1 times 3 makes 3. So it's not really changing anything. Do we agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we always need something in parentheses, something in front. Okay, so what's my GCF now? Very good. X plus 3. Okay, so we take out the x plus 3, and then we make our new parenthesis. We are dividing each of these now by x plus 3. These cancel, and I'm left with?
2x squared.
Good, 2x squared plus these cancel, and I'm left with 1. Can either one of these be factored further? No. Do we have questions? Yes. This right here, if you look here in this problem, 2 goes into both 2 and 6. So we knew we could take out a 2. We're looking for GCF. I have 3 x's and 2 x's, so I knew I could take out 2 because each of them have 2 in it. So the GCF is 2x squared, and when we reduce those, we ended up with the x plus 3. Does that answer? Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. Example 4. We always check for a GCF in the entire problem. Is there a GCF in the entire problem?
No, so we group it.
Very good. So now we're going to group it. We're going to group the first 2 together and the last 2 together.
GCF is
What is the GCF for the first group?
D3.
Good. D to the 3rd power. Because they're 4 and 1, they don't have anything in common. And then D to the 5th and D to the 3rd, that means I can take out 3 D's. Okay? So now I'm dividing each of these by D to the 3rd to see what's left over once I take out that GCF. So on this first term, I still have a 4. D to the 3rd cancels out, and I'm left with D squared. Okay, I saw my plus sign. Here, D to the 3rd and D to the 3rd cancels out. What am I left with?
1.
1. Don't forget that always reduces, and there is a 1. On my second group, what is my GCF?
2.
2. So we're taking out a 2. We divide each of these by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and we have 4D squared, plus 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, and I would always put that if this is a positive 2 you factored out, it's still a positive 2.
We have to keep going.
Right, we are not done. So, these parentheses should match. Do they match?
Yes.
Yes, so that means what is my GCF now?
4D squared plus 1.
Good. 4D squared plus 1 is what I am taking out. And I divide each of these by 4D squared plus 1. Here, these cancel, and what am I left with? Good. D to the 3rd power. Plus, these cancel out, and what am I left with? 2. Can either one of those be factored further? No. So this is my answer. Questions here? Okay, example 5. This one's, I was going to have you try it on your own, but it's a little bit more tricky, so let's go ahead and do it together. Okay. Is there GCF for the whole problem?
No, but we can group it.
Good. So we're going to group it because there's 4 terms. So we are factoring by grouping. On my first group, what could I factor out? What's the GCF?
5.
Very good. 5x cubed is correct. So we take out 5x cubed, make our parenthesis. We go through, I'm dividing each of these by 5x cubed. Here the 5's cancel. X cubed and x4 to the 4th end up becoming just x. Minus. Here the 5's cancel. The x cubes cancel. So that means I have what? 1. Now here I have negative x plus 1. Is negative x plus 1 and x plus 1 the same?
Yes.
No, because this one, the negative is with the x, and here the negative is with the 1. Do we see that? So what could I do in order to change this so that they're the same? Savannah?
Take out a negative 1.
Exactly. We can factor out a negative 1. If I factor out a negative 1, I divide each of these by negative 1, and what happens?
X minus 1.
Good. Two negatives make a positive, which is x, and here a positive and a negative makes a negative 1. Now they are the same, which is what we want. Okay? So you can always change negatives to positives and vice versa by factoring out a negative 1. Do we have questions on that part? So now what is my GCF? Very good. X minus 1. I'm going to write to the side here this time. So we're taking out x minus 1, which means I'm dividing each of these by x minus 1. So here the x minus 1's cancel, and what am I left with? 5x cubed. Good. Here the x minus 1's cancel, and I'm left with? Good. Minus 1. Can that be factored any further? No. That is my answer. Good. Okay. Example 6. I'm going to give you about a minute to try this one on your own. What? Yes, you got it. Good job. Yes, I will find your hand. There you go. You're welcome. Awesome. Good job. I appreciate those of you that have your whiteboards out already. In fact, if you remember, every time we're taking notes, you should have your whiteboard out with you. If you don't have it out right now, don't take the time to take it out. But normally, whenever we're doing notes, you should have your whiteboards out with you. Okay, so for those of you that have done the problem already, this should end up being your answer. A minus 2b in parentheses and 3 plus 5a in parentheses. How many of you got that correct on your own? Outstanding. You guys must have a really good teacher. Okay, just kidding. All right, so we're going to break this up into two different terms or two different groups. What's my GCF in the first group? 3. So we divide each of these by 3. The 3's cancel. I'm left with A. Here, 3 goes into 6 2 times, and I'm left with minus 2b. My next group, what can I take out? 5a is correct. We divide each of these by 5a. Okay, here, my 5's cancel. A goes into a squared, and you're left with just a. Minus 5 goes into 10 2 times. The a's cancel out, and I'm left with 2b. Your parentheses should always match. Do they match? Yes is the right answer. Okay, so that means my GCF is what? Thank you. A minus 2b. We divide each of these by a minus 2b. These cancel, and I'm left with what? 3 plus 5a. Can these be factored further? No. This is my answer.